Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yes, very well. Thank you. The sun is shining up north. So I am, yes, it's just so
Lucky.
unusual.
That doesn't happen very often, does
No.
it? The sun's shining here as well. We got some blue sky, which is nice.
Woohoo.
A little bit. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday, everybody. It's come quick this week because of the short week, thankfully.
Yeah, it has. Absolutely, yeah. Say hello if you're watching. It would be lovely to see how everybody's getting on. Oh, morning, Martina. Lovely to see you. Martina did a great video on LinkedIn the other day. I saw it
as well. So it was obviously very good because it got lots of people's attention, Martina.
Oh,
yes.
Maybe she's been on an excellent course.
Oh, I wonder.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Matthew. Hi, Martina.
So today we are talking about the benefits of having a slick sales process and how we all should be implementing them. A topic that's close to mine and Becky's heart of late.
Yes.
Because we've been doing one of our most popular services at the moment is mystery shopping. Yeah. So we've been doing lots of mystery shop calls, which have with a variety of successes from sales teams.
Yes, it's so interesting. I think I get too into it.
You do.
I love pretending to be like somebody else. I mean, you would never catch me out as a BDRC because there'd be none of this kind of like. I want to make a. What do they used to say in BDRC? I want to make a booking.
Silence.
Yeah. No, not with me.
Like, it's a BDRC on the phone. Yeah.
Not with me.
I get that with us.
Too into it. Yeah.
Becky's got a variety of accents that she uses.
I won't be using them today. No.
I don't do any of the mystery shop calls because I get absolutely terrified I'm going to get found out, even though people are actually paying us to do it. Anyway, but it's been really interesting, which is why we wanted to do this topic this week. And there's in all venues and hotels, well, in most venues and hotels, you kind of get mystery shopped. Often BDRC is obviously a big one, but in all businesses, it's so important to understand that client journey and how they're feeling along that journey. Even more so if you work with partners or you've got teams, because realistically, even if you do have processes in place, are they actually being done day to day?
Yeah. And when we say processes, we don't mean that it's got to be kind of like robotic, etc. Rigid. It's just a case of having something to follow, isn't it? To make sure that you're not missing anything. Because there's so many benefits to having them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. It's more of like a kind of outline of what should be done and a little bit of tick boxing sometimes. Although we specialise in mystery shopping in consultative selling, rather than actually, did they ask for the address? Did they ask for the postcode? Like actual tick boxing. But there are some really simple things which we found, haven't we, with clients previously that just get missed simply because the structure isn't in place to support them to know the questions to ask.
And the beauty is that they're also quick wins that can be easily changed and improvements seen quickly. So definitely.
Yeah. So a couple of benefits really. Number one is standing out from the crowd and out from the competitors. And
I think that's so important, isn't it? Sorry to interrupt. I just think back to when I used to manage the team, the cluster team at Marriott, and some people were ringing to make inquiries, probably to you and about 5 or 6 other places. It's like, and if you're like, how many people, when you're inquiry, you're just not going to stand out, are you? They're not going to come to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And also, it's about standing out and also qualifying that booking. A lot of proposals that we've been sent previously are very generic, which I get, you need to have a template, but they can be tweaked and bespoke so easily just to make it the client feel like it's tailored to them and their inquiry. But often those questions, in order to make it tailored, don't get asked at the beginning anyway.
Good point. No, absolutely. I think you want to feel like people are genuinely interested in getting your business. And I think if you get like, I know we're going off tangent already, but if you get like a really generic proposal, you don't feel that, do you? You just feel like you're a number and not like an individual. Yeah,
totally. Also, a benefit we've got immediately is excuse me, closing sales, closing business, because again, if you've got those procedures, those questions to ask, the right proposals going out, you'll know what the objections are from the client, what their concerns are going to be, in order to get rid of them all and close really quickly and easily.
Absolutely. And one of my biggest pet hates in the world is follow up. And either when people don't follow up, or they do that "I'm just calling to follow up" line that I absolutely detest, and they don't do it for a reason. And that's kind of, it sounds so obvious, but sometimes people get so busy that they actually forget to follow up. And that's such an important part of the process. So it means that's that you don't miss the sale is. Out. Yeah, and you can close the sale, exactly.
But I think as kind of business owners and directors, it's important to remember that it's often not the team's fault necessarily. And you're right, Becky, like following up needs to be done and all this stuff. But if you aren't putting those procedures in place or deciding what that's going to look like in your business, so when somebody inquires how many days after are you supposed to be phoning them, you really need to filter that through into your team, your business partners, and also for those of you who are working on your own, who are kind of self-employed, what your expectations of yourself are going to be, and what your procedures should look like. Because once you've outlined them, it will really help you stick to them and kind of be empowered to know your plan of action.
Definitely, and we said, didn't we, that another benefit is having an empowered team. I think there's nothing worse than when somebody rings up and they're like, "Oh, I'm not sure about that, and I can't tell you about that, and I don't know. I've got to ask somebody about that." If they feel confident because they've got everything laid out in front of them, then they'll feel empowered, and that'll pass on to the client as well.
Having an empowered team is so important, and feeling empowered yourself as well. Like for those of you that work on your own, you need to have some empowerment and confidence that what you're doing is the right thing and the right kind of steps. And there's simple things as well. I mean, I was talking to a client and she was struggling to follow up with people after exhibitions, and she was saying, I just can't call them. And I was really breaking it down, and it turned out that people that she was asking people to write their email addresses down on a piece of paper and then going to follow up, and there were spelling mistakes or she couldn't read the writing and stuff, and things like that can be fixed so simply. I said, just take your iPad and get them to type it, and then it's done. It's like really analysing, okay, why is there a bit of a stopgap here? Why am I not getting to the next stage? Why can't I contact them? And it's often really simple things like that.
Absolutely. And even in that situation, on our iPad, you can make a little note maybe about something personal or something they chatted about, and then make reference to it when she follows it up. Just little things.
Absolutely. And then suddenly that's when you start getting a longer term relationship.
Absolutely.
So, and please tell us in the comments whether you have a slick sales procedure, if you've got processes in place, if you've not really thought about it before, and how you tend to work. We were going to talk a little bit now about what a sales process looks like. How do you do it? How do you implement it? How do you make sure that you're doing it? And the first point is SOP, standard operating procedures, which sounds all very jargony and very posh, doesn't it? And it sounds very like big businessy, but it really doesn't have to be.
It's just a set of guidelines at the end of the day, isn't it? Let's face it. I mean, when I worked at Marriott, I wrote the SOPs for the cluster sales offices, so I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to stuff like that. So I love all of that, but like it is just a set of guidelines that people can refer back to. And when you're training new people, so that they know kind of like how to start out, or to stop having bad habits or forgetting things. And that's kind of what it is, really, isn't it, at the end of the day? Fem says she loves a mystery shop. Yes, Fem, you're doing the next how did I know that you love a mystery shop?
Yeah, absolutely. Another great thing to do is to work with your team to write the SOPs, and say, look, this is what we're doing at the moment. We've done some mystery shops. We can see that there's a bit of a gap here in what we're offering to clients or how we're portraying ourselves to clients. Let's have a brainstorm and work out how we can change it and improve it, and then get them on board with writing them, because there's nothing worse than starting a job and saying, here's the SOP manual, read it, and now you've just got to do it.
You must do this. No, I think that's a really great point. And it gets to get their buy-in, doesn't it? But also it helps to kind of like set expectations, because even though we obviously have got to listen to our clients and meet their expectations, if they don't feel, or they think it's going to be impossible to do something by a certain time frame, then they need to be able to sort of let that opinion across, don't they, as well?
Absolutely. There's nothing worse, like I said, we're starting a new job and just being given a manual to read. But then perhaps even worse is, because I've written SOP manuals for venues that I've worked in previously, and then I give them to the director, and he takes them to the board meeting, and he's like, here you go, we've got SOPs in place. And I'm like, yeah, but the team haven't even seen them. Like, they don't know what they say. You're just ticking a box to be like, yeah, we know what
that's exactly what it is, isn't it? Just ticking a box sometimes. But no, you're right there.
So make sure that they are user friendly. And again, even if you're self-employed and you're working on your own, you can still write SOPs. It's really, really good exercise to be like, so an inquiry comes in on day 0. When am I going to send the proposals? How long is my time frame for sending proposals? Then when am I going to phone them to follow up? And then have systems in place to remind you to do those things.
Absolutely.
It's really easy to
we
forget.
use the CRM system, don't we, at Selling Savvy? So that is the kind of thing you could utilise in order to set those dates and follow-up calls and this, that and the other.
I think it's worth never underestimating the power of a CRM, because last year we worked from a ginormous Excel spreadsheet, which was wonderful.
Better than nothing, if people aren't,
absolutely, and was sectioned up, and it was very well done, and we have to thank Fem for that. She did most of that. But since January, we've implemented an actual proper online CRM, and it's changed the way we work. I feel like it's been
definitely
so much easier and
more organised, aren't you, when you can see it instead of it being on a list somewhere. It's just there as an activity, like you would if you were in a hotel or venue and you've got a Delphi or a sales and catering or whatever. It's just similar, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I am, rightly or wrongly, one of those sorts of people that work from my inbox. So all my to-dos are in my inbox. I'll email myself to-do lists, and when CRMs funnel into your inbox, then they'll email you saying, this is your task today. I find that really helpful, because I'm like, I need to clear my inbox, and I can't because that's there, so I have to phone them.
No, absolutely. And I have set questions that I ask people when with my people by people hat on when people inquire as well. So I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of like business you've got, whether you are a venue and events company or like us, a one-man band or a smaller company. There's ways and means of pulling some guidelines or SOPs together for yourself that are just simple and straightforward. It doesn't have to be, like you say, like a big stack manual.
Fem saying, I have to have a CRM for work processes and follow up. I can't work with lists, calendars or spreadsheets, but it has to be whatever works for that person. You're right, everybody works differently, and it's really important to bear that in mind, and make sure that when you are giving them the SOPs and stuff, they're not boring reams of words and words and words. Like, we do quite a lot of screenshots, like this is exactly where it is, to help out.
And maybe explain why you're doing it as well, not just kind of the you do that if you involve the team as well, but maybe in the SOPs, not just a list of kind of like jargony, boring kind of corporate-y stuff, but what you're trying to achieve maybe at the top of that SOP, like a few lines or something like that.
And feed off the team, like get your ideas from the team as well. Like we have a team member who was struggling to set up her emails recently, so I was like, oh, I'll put together a document. What system do you use? And I did like screenshots of this is where you click and this is this code that you need to put into this bit, and it just felt like I was like, oh, that's really good because I've got that. So next time somebody else asks, I can say, look, we're really prepared with this. Here you go. You can do it, and we can do it over the phone together if you want. So feed what questions are your team asking you or your colleagues asking you, and then you can kind of filter that into some other way of supporting them.
That's a good point. And then it's evolving. It's not just like you say, a big stack that sits there for 6 months to a year to get looked at for another year. It's kind of like, changing as things evolve and change.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were going to talk a little bit about how you can analyse your current procedures. And one of the first things and kind of most obvious things to do is competitor analysis, which we talked about, we're always harping on about, but it's so important, and even more important at the moment because businesses have all changed so much. So have a look at what your competitors are doing, how slick they are. Don't be blindsided by their social media presence or their amazing website, because internal procedures aren't always reflected by how businesses look on the outside.
And you could mystery shop your competitors if you were feeling brave.
Absolutely. We used to do that a lot when I worked in hotels.
Did as well, and see how they kind of like handle the inquiry, and if they send you an all singing or dancing proposal, and if they follow up. I think that's really interesting. Really interesting,
and absolutely terrifies me as well. I used to hate it when my boss would ask me to do that.
I have to say, I used to find that more terrifying than doing our clients'
now,
because you think they're going to recognise me.
Yeah. Another way to analyse your current procedures, and this is, tread carefully if you are going to do this, but is to ask your clients questions like, why did you book me? Why did you choose me over the other companies that you were looking to work with? How did you feel about the sales process? If you know your clients really well, it's really fair and impressive to be asking those types of questions if you have that strong relationship.
Absolutely. And how easy is it to book with us? And some of these questions do fall on some people's like follow-up post. If you're a venue, for example, some of these often fall into that post-event questionnaire or call, don't they? Like, how easy was it to kind of book with us and that kind of thing. But you could, in theory, especially before you or just after you've reopened or whatever, you could actually go out with an actual sort of survey just around this, saying, we're re-looking. I mean, it will look impressive to your clients if you're looking at better ways to work anyway. We're looking at reassessing our processes and procedures, and we really value your input. Anything you think that can help us improve that and help you improve us working together, I'm sure people would be more than happy to help out.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we should do that, Becky.
Yes, maybe we should.
That'd be a really good idea.
It's scary, but
it is scary. It would be interesting to do some polls around it, though. Anyway, sorry, internal discussion there. The other thing that you can do is mystery shopping your business. Obviously, we do this day to day at the moment, but we also you can also ask friends and family to do it. There is a benefit to having people who know what it should be like and kind of the industry and everything. And I think it's important to recognise, like we said earlier, that your team might not it might not always be their fault. If they get really low scores or if it hasn't gone that well. Actually, they just need some more structure or some better templates and things like that.
Yeah, it's often what you do with that feedback as well, isn't it? It's not kind of like, I mean, I know all of you guys know this anyway, but it's not going, look at this, what are you doing? It's not that kind of attitude. It's to help improve, isn't it? And to help improve the overall process. It's not about kind of like victimizing sort of individuals that maybe aren't doing so well in a certain area. It's just highlighting the training maybe that's needed, or the tweaks that needed to the process or the templates and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I'm sure nobody here would go into it anyway. But it's important to remember how your team are feeling, and actually the impact of being mystery shopped can feel quite vulnerable and like you're being judged, even if you end up getting high scores. I remember when I was junior coordinator in a hotel 1,000 years ago, and my boss, and it was terrifying time of the month when BDRC came through, because everybody was on tenterhooks, and you were so nervous because you knew that whatever score you got was going to be, the whole hotel was going to know, and if it was low, you'd get pulled into the director's office and told off. It was hot, and it created a horrible culture. And we are purposefully not going the opposite way. And even, we've even said to some of our clients, we actually don't feel comfortable sharing this with your team member because it's not their fault that they got such a low score.
Yeah, and the last thing we want to do, especially at the moment, is decrease motivation when motivation is already obviously going to be quite difficult. Going back to going back into work. It needs to be. But you
can gather so much information from doing it that it really makes it worthwhile. Again, I think, we think that it's important to take it down the consultative selling route. That's really the way that client relationships and long-term and lucrative relationships are built, even more so after the last year. Everybody wants to be...
Absolutely. Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong at all with the likes of the BDRCs of the world. I get why people do it, especially the larger chains. It's a great benchmark comparison.
Absolutely,
the others are doing it. But I don't necessarily think it's always the way that people do business. I know we laughed and we joked with I want to make a booking, tumbleweed conversation, but that isn't actually, if I was making a booking, I wouldn't just call up and say that. I'd be like, oh, hi, I've been looking at such and such. And, you would speak in a normal kind of fashion. So it's not just ticking a box. It is a little bit more subjective, which obviously people need to, like you say, it's better if people have got experience, because they can then kind of compare to what they think it should be that are doing the calls. The consultative side, I think, is so important, maybe as well as the way that BDRC do things, but definitely for independent hotels. I think, and I know we're going to say it because we're going to boast about what we do.
Because we wrote it.
But I think it's really great for independent hotels, definitely.
Yeah, and businesses, because most of what we're doing at the moment, the majority hasn't been hotels.
No, it's been necessarily. Events. Yeah, and that has been really interesting. Yeah,
events companies and suppliers, which is really interesting. I think you're right about the consultative selling, and I also think there are some things that we've certainly picked up on, which is important to talk to your team or kind of recheck in with yourself that you do, and that's picking up on cues to build rapport. If they say, I had a referral, my colleague said that I should get in touch with you, it's really important to be like, oh, who is it? Oh, I'll have to say thank you to them. Oh, instantly you've got a reason to build rapport. You've got somebody you know in common. And if your team or you don't feel confident and empowered, it's very easy to be nervous and skip over that and be like, okay, well, when's the inquiry? How many people is it for? All of those questions. But
sometimes I've found that actually some of the calls that we've done with both event agencies and event teams and venues is that they've kind of forgotten to ask some of the fundamental questions, like, what's your phone number, to do a follow-up or that kind of thing, not necessarily just the kind of rapport and the asking the right questions to find out people's needs. And again, if you've got that loose template or script, you're not using robotically, but you can just sort of glance down towards the end. You can say, oh gosh, I've not even asked your phone number, have I? And at least you get it, before
absolutely.
You let them go.
There is also an order to ask some of these questions in, and I know that often in inquiry forms or kind of structural templates, it's like name, company, email address, phone number, are you coming through an agent, details of inquiry, what's your budget, all of this stuff, which is great. And, you know, it shouldn't be too dissimilar to that, to be fair. But that so many times I've heard salespeople ask for budget is the first question.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I haven't told you about what I want yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So
exactly.
try and be mindful of the client's thought process as the discussion unfolds, because you want to be seen to be invested in them and consulting them.
Absolutely.
Rather than like, where's the money at?
Well, yeah. Well, we were thinking it up here, but don't necessarily say it.
Yeah.
I always think as well, when it comes to the kind of inquiry side of things, that you can get an awful lot out of a client if you just answer like a really sort of thought-provoking, we used to call them in Marriott high gain questions. Something like, so tell me all about your event. You know, tell me what you're looking to achieve. You're going to get quite a lot of the information that is on your list as part of that. And then you can like mop the rest up if they've missed something, can't you? Rather than going into those kind of like, which you felt like you needed to do in some of the other kind of like more robotic mystery shopping. It's almost like you feel like you've got to ask that question in that way, otherwise you're not going to get that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. And I think that tell me phrase is very powerful, and it's part of our kind of open questioning coursework discussion. And there are some certain phrases that you want to use in specific situations. So like tell me is going to give you lots of information, but you also might want to close things down, like is your objection XYZ, are you worried about the budget, and ask yes or no questions. So it's really useful to kind of understand where they sit in your processes.
Yeah, definitely have a mixture.
Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, how to make improvements. So once you've worked out what all the benefits are of having procedures in place and what you want to get out of them, you know what that process kind of looks like. You've done some analysis either internally or getting somebody in to support you with that, to see what they look like at the moment. Then you need to start making those changes, and not just making them, make sure they actually happen. It's very easy to say, we're going to do this and it's going to be amazing and our clients are going to love it. And then the phones start ringing and it all gets forgotten.
Yeah, I guess like anything, things, you know, we appreciate things are busy, and that's when some of these things kind of start to go amiss, don't they? It's like, I haven't got time to do a proposal because I've got another inquiry, or I haven't got time to follow all these people up because the phones are ringing too much. But I think it's like anything when it comes to sort of processes. If you follow the process, it will in turn generate more time. So it's trying not to get into that kind of like that busy cycle,
spiral,
and ignoring the processes. Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say that writing these processes and implementing things should be part of your proactive strategy, rather than continuously being reactive, which is when we find ourselves really busy because the phone's ringing and I've got an email and I need to do this, I need to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas actually to be like, I'm going to turn my emails off, my phone's away, I'm going to spend half an hour brainstorming some ideas of the perfect process for my business.
No, absolutely. And I think it goes down to sort of processes in the office as well. If you're lucky to have an events team or a venue team and you've got people in the office and they do struggle to do the follow-ups, I remember we always used to give people sort of afternoons off the phones just to purely focus on follow-ups. And it's having those procedures in places as well, in order to make sure the other ones can actually be implemented and people have time to do them. Yeah.
So Flo has got a great point. Showing enthusiasm and genuine interest for their inquiry really helps build rapport. Yeah, absolutely. And that is really, I don't think we should underestimate how difficult that can be sometimes when the phone's ringing and you're like, for God's sake, I don't have time. Yeah. But you have to just put your game face on and like,
it's kind of it's going back to being mindful, isn't it? Of being in the moment. And it is very difficult. I'm a little bit like it now when I'm trying to do something and the phone's ringing and I'm thinking, you know, I think everybody gets like that. But then you've just got to then purely focus your mind on what's happening and just be mindful in the moment. I know mindfulness is quite a big thing at the moment, but mindfulness in business is quite a nice thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt's also given a good point, making the process not feel like an administrative task that you have to do, but feeling the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the beauty of bringing your team on board and trying to make it a creative task of like, I mean, during our workshops we have a piece of string that we lie across the floor, and then we get stars and we write down, this is what's happening at this point, and how do we want it to look, how do we want them to feel when they're inquiring with us, how do we want to feel when they hang the phone up and go and tell their boss that they've phoned our company. Like all of that, those emotions and the kind of flow of the journey is really helpful.
And I guess that all goes back to the consultative way of doing things. It won't feel as much of an administrative task if it's done in a kind of consultative way. It'll make it more enjoyable for you doing it, as well as for the people on the other end of the phone, or however you're taking the inquiry or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, that went quickly.
As usual.
Thanks everyone for coming on. What a great session today. Next week, if I get my piece of paper here, I am going to be talking to Chris Perkins, who's the CEO for Q Events, and we're going to talk it. And the title of it is, Will Live Events Ever Be the Same?
Ooh, I like that title.
Really good one, I know. I mean, I say I know, I didn't write the title, so I can say that. It's a really good title. Fab. Thank you so much. Have a great Friday and weekend.
Yeah, happy weekend and Friday, everybody. Lovely to see you. Take care.
Awesome.
Bye.